Okay, welcome back to the final session for week two's pre-class activities. This session is really thinking about some marketing strategy and planning key concepts. I'm going to take you through several different concepts. Firstly, vision, mission, and value, external environment, stakeholder engagement, internal environment, programs and purpose. And what I want you to think about through here and what you'll be thinking about and applying is essentially how these concepts relate to your applied project. So you'll need to be thinking about how you can cover these off in your applied project, and the plan is for in the next week or so for one of these online sessions to actually talk a little bit about writing out a strategic plan. So these are the kinds of things that might go into a strategic plan. So in terms of the vision, mission, and values, what are we talking about here? This is really about developing a shared agreement on what you're doing as an organization. And a mission is really a statement of why the organization exists at its most meaningful level. What's its aspiration? What's its vision? This is a clear and specific and compelling picture of what the organization will look like after a specific period of time. 1 year, 10 years, 5 years, whatever it might be. And the values, what are the boundaries within which the organization will operate in pursuit of its vision? So all this leads towards a strategy or a clear plan, time and market base that describes the path by which an organization intends to reach its overall vision. Okay, so keep in mind for your organization, for your brief, the briefing client, what's the mission, what's the vision, and what are the values, and how does that align towards strategy? A well-constructed vision is really comprised of two parts. It has a core ideology and an envisioned future. So by core ideology, we mean it includes the essential purpose of the organization, the why it exists, the core values, or the what we stand for. And Simon Sinek has some great online presentations you can look at in terms of the meaning of why. It's kind of why does something exist? Why do we do what we do? I recommend taking a look at those to start to understand maybe that notion of why. And next, also this envisioned future. It's made up of both a clear picture or vision of what the organization will become and the major long-term results to be accomplished. So these are also known as big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAG. These big, audacious goals are the things that an organization is striving towards becoming in an envisioned future, an organization or a political party or whatever it might be. Once all these three elements, the core ideology, the clear picture, and the major long-term results are in place, then strategic planning can begin. The external environment, there's a few different models in terms of looking at external environments. I'm going to talk to you about VUCA first. VUCA stands for one, volatility. That's the challenge of unexpected or unstable change. Maybe of an unknown duration and but not necessarily hard to understand. So markets are volatile. Markets are volatile and experience volatility. How can we manage for or plan for that volatility? Uncertainty, despite a lack of other information, the event's basic cause and effects are actually known. Change is possible but not a given. So we operate in volatile and uncertain environments, which are also ambiguous. So the relationship between the complexity is not clear, no precedence exists, and we face unknown unknowns. So for a new political party, this is very, very important, right? There's an unclear understanding of the future. There's no precedence for our party, and maybe for a new brand as well. So we operate in this ambiguous environment. And the C in the model, complexity. Situations have many interconnected parts or variables, and that this throws up a whole range of complexity. So thinking of external environments, we've got to take into account the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, and the ambiguity within those environments. So what does this mean? We can map the VUCA in terms of how much you know about the situation along the bottom axis from a little to a lot, and how well you can predict the results of your actions along the vertical axis there from a little to a lot. And you can see some of the characteristics, examples, and approaches. Take a read of these, and this is essentially a rough guide to helping you identify and getting ready for and responding to events in each of the four VUCA categories: volatile, uncertainty, ambiguous, or complex. The other model for thinking about an external environment is also the PESTLE, also known as PEST, Steeple, STEEP, and so on. It's really a tool to help organizations map the external trends or forces, the key drivers that may have positive or negative impacts on their organization. So think about these trends. These are the things that you may have identified or found through the trend canvas, and you can think about those trends and apply political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal external environment conditions. So political issues may be the government, maybe corruption, maybe tax policies, labour policies, consumer protection laws, whatever. Economic may include economic trends, growth, industry forecasts, seasonal factors, inflation, interest rates, housing prices, whatever it might be. Social aspects might include consumers' beliefs about a range of different factors, or business beliefs, taboos, demographics, immigration or migration. Technology could include a whole range of infrastructure or emerging technologies, legislation, R&D, and so on. Legal could include laws, antitrust, IP, tax discrimination, and environmental could include anything from the weather, climate, carbon footprint, social policies around renewable energies, corporate social responsibility, and all those other issues that feed into the important notion for companies to think about in terms of the external environment. Stakeholder engagement is another area, and you can have a quick read of this article, the HBR article, 5 questions to identify key stakeholders. Those questions are: 1, does the stakeholder have a fundamental impact on your business performance? Can you clearly identify what you want from the stakeholder? Is the relationship dynamic, and do you want it to grow? Can you exist without or easily replace the stakeholder? And has the stakeholder already been identified through another relationship? So you need to identify who your stakeholders are and see how important they are to different aspects of your business. And for a political party, there's a whole range of different stakeholders. You think of lobbying, you think of consumers that are voting, you think of consumers that will go out and on the footpath and get votes for you. There's a whole range of different strategies that we can apply to thinking about different stakeholders for an organization. The internal environment, there's a few different frameworks. A logical framework, or log frame, is a way of thinking about, it's key for international development programming in particular, but has a range of different terms commonly thought of as goals, objectives, outcomes, or outputs. And I quite like this notion of a logical flow. I'll provide you a quick example here. So we've got color coding from our objectives, our success measures, our verifications, and our assumptions. And then we've got across the rows there: goal, purpose or outcome, result or output, and activities. So I've taken you through these 4 steps at the bottom. The way you're trying to think about this is, what are we trying to accomplish and why? So what's our strategic intent? How are we going to measure success? Right? What are the performance improvements or the success measures that we're going to put into place? What are the conditions that must be met, the assumptions or risks that we have to be able to put into our assumptions or take for granted? And how are we going to get there? So what are the project management steps or skills that we're going to go from point A to point B to point C, and so on? So this will be a useful way to frame up and think about your strategy implementation in your strategic plan pitch. Also, another internal framework is the McKinsey 7S framework, which has 2 buckets of element: hard elements and soft elements. Hard elements being strategy, structure, and system. Soft being shared values, skills, style, and staff. And you can see here there's a range of different definitions for what each of these are. There's a few articles that you can Google as well to find out more about the McKinsey 7S framework. It's up to you. There's no strict requirement on which framework you use, but it's important to think about these steps. Finally, program and purpose, SMART C objectives. So the objectives that you set in place as an organization in your strategic plan need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timely, or have some date in mind, and be challenging to some degree to help the organization and the people in the organization to grow. So why create objectives? Well, the importance of creating objectives is really that you are identifying feasible ways to carry out your strategy or mission, and these are serving as markers of success and give you a way to prioritize your goals, create guidelines, and really work towards your mission, your overall corporate mission, thinking back to our vision and mission statements.